Time and date is set for Michigan to do battle with Georgia. New Year's Eve, 7:30 p.m., I believe, is kickoff time, and we're going to talk about it. So, welcome to Michigan football at the Voice of College Football. I am one of the post-game hosts, Desmond. I've got my partner Dre with me, and we also have Mark Rogers with us as well, who is the voice of college football. While you are here, please subscribe to the channel. We definitely appreciate it. And also subscribe to Mark's main channel, the Voice of College Football. And also, please share the videos out on social media. We definitely appreciate it. So, welcome everybody as you come on in. Mark and Dre, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Doing great.
Mark?
I just kind of lay back because I think for the next year, Dre's got honors to speak first every time. So
Hey.
he's won those honors.
Yeah, I appreciate the first time in 10 years. So I think or 10 or 9 years. So I'll gladly take that.
Well, and you also had first time ever with being in the college football playoff. So
Man,
so
for
many
a lot of firsts, man, and trying to act like I've been here before, even though I haven't. As I'm sure a lot of Michigan fans are. It's funny. We always, we walk with a lot of pride, and talk about our program with a lot of pride. But it's different when you can really back it up of recent success. A lot of it's been past success, but it's a good feeling. It's a validating type feeling. I think when you feel like you're a big dog, but you're not quite getting the results. But when you finally do get the big dog type of results, the top tier program type results, it's a really good feeling. You feel like, because now, Michigan, they really are in a special class of a new program, another program that of a select few has reached the CFP. I mean, it's really not that many programs that have done it, and so it's fun and great to be finally a part of that.
Yeah, and I think especially with the year that Michigan had last year, to be 2-4, you had the quarterback carousel, so to speak. You started with Joe Milton, and then Cade came in halfway through the season, and you had the offseason with Jim Harbaugh with the contract, and he took less salary, and it was just kind of chaos over the offseason. You had people who wanted Jim Harbaugh fired. You had people who were saying that he's just not going to be the guy. He won't be able to get it done. And just that Ohio State was just a monster that just couldn't be stopped. And I still don't think that Ohio State's going anywhere. They're still going to be the top program that they are. But for Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, especially Aiden Hutchinson, Cade McNamara, those guys, the leaders on this team and the coaching staff on this team, to go from the disaster of a year you had last year to come back and be focused, ready to go, and dialed in every single week, it's incredible. It's an incredible turnaround from last year to this year. I mean, it's almost unbelievable, like when you really think about it, to have 2 wins last year, and this year you have 1 loss, and you're the number 2 team in the nation. It's pretty incredible. So Dre, I'm going to ask you a question because I believe I saw Mark on with Steve Dace, I think, earlier today on the channel. But want to ask you, where do you think the season took a turn, or where it just seemed different as far as this Michigan team, where it wasn't going to be the same old Harbaugh and third place Jimmy you and I have joked about plenty of times and calling him that, right? At what point do you feel like the season turned where it just looked different for the Michigan Wolverines?
Penn State. I can answer that question easier. And they did because the fourth quarter, Penn State, Penn State goes up. I believe it's 14-13. Was it 14-13? We won 17-14. No, it was 14-10. And on the road, backs against the wall. And can you guys still hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
We got you.
I think Dre might have froze out. I think this happened last week.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we got you. I wonder if he can see the chat.
You guys hear me?
Tell him. Yes, we can. You can't hear us.
Nope.
Okay, I'm sorry. You guys kind of froze on me. All right, sorry about that. No, what I was saying is that it was at Penn State, backs against the wall, and in previous years where this team would have wilted, to come up with that last drive, it felt different. It felt different, and from there you kind of knew, and you saw the elation on the sideline. You saw the elation on Harbaugh's face, the elation on Cade McNamara's face. I never forget after the game, they was interviewing Jimmy, and he just had a different look, right? And he didn't, like he did with the Big Ten title game interview. He kind of said a couple words, but he immediately went to Cade McNamara, I think, and it was like you just that felt like weight off their shoulders, like a road game they needed against a good opponent, a solid opponent in years they would have lost, and you feel like that was the start of something special.
Yeah, I think Penn State is a really good one. I really looked at Wisconsin because that was
early.
Essentially with Michigan and Wisconsin. They've basically gone back and forth that whoever's the home team is going to win. And for Michigan to go on the road, and even at that point with, I think that was 4 or 5 weeks into the season, for Michigan to go there and put up 38 points on a pretty darn good defense, I thought was a glimpse of it could look a little different. It could be a little bit different. And we talked about it post game. I remember that specifically on if that was a big game. We talked about it. That was one of the topics. Is this a big game for Jim Harbaugh, or is this kind of more of the same? And I think we both were in agreement that this is a big game, because even people who may not be as close to the Michigan program as far as watching the team week in and week out, like had Wisconsin won that, I think they may have been really, really shocked. But I think for people that are closer to the program, understand like this matchup, like this is something where it just seems like it is the home team is going to win, and a lot of times they're going to win big. So for Michigan to go on the road, and I don't think Wisconsin was ranked at that time, but nonetheless, I still thought that was a really big, I thought that was a turning point in the season, to where you look at it and you wonder if things are going to start to trend in the right way. And obviously hindsight's 2020, they definitely did. And it was a pretty good win for Michigan. So, Mark, I'm going to ask you, because I don't remember what your answer was, or if you did answer the question earlier. I think it was the 10-minute war.
Yeah, Steve did ask me.
Podcast.
Yeah, he pretty much asked me the same thing in regards to at what point did I know that this was for real. And I said, well, we differed going into the season, and in a sense, well, in a large sense, Steve turned out to be right, and I was somewhat wrong in that I was looking at a run-of-the-mill Michigan season, I thought, and hopefully Dre can get back with us. But I was looking at, they have the same talent as that they've had in the past. They've been a 9 or 10 win team. Throw out the 2 and 4. It's an aberration. It counts. And I think that those really top programs, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, were the ones that kind of weathered the storm last year. But other than that, you saw these wild card kind of results out there. And I think Michigan was part of that. So I threw out the 2 and 4, and I thought that they were going to come back with a pretty similar type team and level of team as they have. And they obviously exceeded that. So once they hit Wisconsin, and based on some things that you said, that they had not won on the road at Wisconsin in 20 some years. Obviously they don't play there all the time, but they were 0-5. Despite the record, I knew how good Wisconsin was. I thought I had a pretty good gauge on how good they were. And if Michigan could go in there, and they had run the ball so much and so effectively at the beginning of the season, that I didn't think that they would be able to just shove the ball down, the running game down Wisconsin's throats, which they didn't, that they would have to show that they could go to the passing game. They did that. They broke open a close game at half. They won on the road. All those things that added up to me to say, okay, I don't know if they're going to win a Big Ten championship, but I know that this is a really good team and they've cleared a big hurdle here.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like you said, the 2-4 year, last year it affected different teams in different ways, and like you said, Michigan got hit really hard there. But it was interesting because of the changes that still were made, because I believe there was a video that you had in the offseason about potentially Josh Gattis going, potentially being let go, and for him to still stay on the staff, also to bring in Mike McDonald, like we've talked about that as well. Those were things where I think it would have been easy for Jim Harbaugh to fire Josh Gattis in the offseason, because you look at it, the offense isn't clicking to what they thought it would be, right? Josh Gattis coming from Alabama, the type of offense they ran, and that was when I believe when Tua was there, high flying, spread offense, throwing the ball quite a bit. And it didn't look the same when Josh Gattis came here as offensive coordinator. And I think it would have been easy for Jim Harbaugh to fire Josh Gattis and go somewhere else. But I think sometimes the continuity definitely helps, especially when you're talking about a first year. Really, we've kind of called Cade a first-year starting quarterback. I mean, he started a couple games, last year. But when you have a quarterback who's a first-year starter, having the same offensive coordinator can be a huge help for that guy as Cade develops and improved, got better and better throughout the season. I think you look at some of that continuity as potentially a reason, why he improved the way that he did. And then on the flip side, I mean, I Drake can vouch for me. I was not a fan of Don Brown at all. So to me, any defensive coordinator that you brought in was going to do a better job than what Don Brown did. And Mike McDonald has done that in way more. I mean, it's incredible the job that he's done this year. And when you look at it, those two defensive ends that you have are it's a nightmare. And that is why I think Michigan, and we can kind of transition to Georgia, but Michigan will be in any football game that they play in because of those two guys. Because when you have two guys that you have to focus on, account for, like there's no way to get away from, either one of those guys. If you're talking about a shutdown corner, right? I can scheme away from you. I can throw to the other side. I can, do a lot of different things. But when you're talking about defensive ends that play on opposite sides, there's not a ton that you can do that's not that they're not going to be involved in. So that's why I think that Michigan's going to be in any game they play because of those guys. But just getting back to last year and just the changes that were made and how this team's handled that and ran with it. It's been incredible. It's been awesome. So, well, Michigan is Big Ten champs. Dre, go ahead. You sounds like you were going to say something. Maybe not. So, also want to quickly jump on, because I know this is probably a hot topic, but as far as the Alabama 1 versus Michigan 2 argument, I think there's an argument to be made for both teams. Like I don't think Alabama being 1, Michigan 2 was anything egregious. I don't think that was anything crazy, but I can understand an argument for Michigan being number 1. I think once you get to basically halfway through the season and moving forward, Michigan didn't have any of the struggle wins against unranked opponents or quality opponents, and Alabama had them littered throughout their season, their schedule. I mean, they obviously lost to A&M, struggled with Auburn, struggled with Florida, struggled with LSU. So I do understand that part. The only thing I would think about is the way I look at it is the committee basically told us that up until Auburn, until the result of the Auburn game and the Ohio State game, right, Alabama was the better team, or they had them ranked higher. And then, right, so Alabama struggles with Auburn, and Michigan, dominates Ohio State, so they flip them. So my thought is if you isolate the two games, right? Because all they did was flip. So just take the two games with, Alabama, Georgia, and then Michigan, Iowa. Who was more impressive and who had the most, impressive win just on that Saturday? That's kind of what I thought the committee probably looked at was, well, essentially, Alabama beats Georgia, who has been, I think, for most people, the only real dominant team all season. Alabama was able to win that game, and it's definitely not to poo-poo on Michigan's win, because 42-3, I don't care who you play, that's an impressive win. But I think when you look at a two-loss, I think Iowa had two losses, a two-loss Iowa team, versus an undefeated Georgia, I think that's probably what they looked at. But interested to get your thoughts on that, Mark, on the 1 versus 2 argument, and if you think the committee got it right, kind of get your thoughts.
Like you, I could have made and would make an argument for either side. So I don't have a big issue and would not have had an issue with either one. And I stated that before the selection came out and after the selection came out. My top 25 that I released before theirs, that I got out late Saturday night to make sure that I got that out before they made their selections known the next day. Alabama 1, Michigan 2. But I had to think about it. I had to look at it. It wasn't an easy call. And the previous week I must have had Georgia 1. I think I had Michigan 2 and Alabama 3. I think I did the same thing the committee did, I think, is just kind of weigh. And I'm not the prisoner. I try not to be the prisoner of the moment. I'm just continually evaluating the entire season over every week, just evaluating the entire season. And, what more could Michigan have done? There's nothing else that they could have done. So they did not lose the number 1 seed. They played the 13th ranked team in the country. And I would say I was one of the 20 best teams in the country. I'm not tied to the rankings, but of course they're a huge indicator. I don't know that I was quite that good, but they're close. And Michigan was in control of that game halfway through the first quarter. Like we pretty much knew that they were going to win the game at that point. When did they have it locked up? Probably once they scored to make it 21-3. I thought, okay, game over. And with Alabama, Georgia, Alabama didn't win a tight game. They were clearly the better team. It wasn't a blowout in any way. And it was still a game until 10, 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, something in that range. Mm-hmm. But I just thought it was, considering they were playing a team that was the consensus number 1 team, that was just that was enough for me, in addition to measuring everything else. And I think Alabama, I know I've taken a lot of feedback that, of course, the Alabama detractors will say they didn't play anyone and their schedule was weak and who did they beat and all that. And I just had one of those comments made to me in a live stream just a few hours ago. And I said, well, first of all, Ole Miss, they're a top 10 team in the country. Alabama had them shut out at halftime. I know that LSU's down. I know that Florida's down. But they're still extremely talented teams that, if you look at their football power index, which I don't put a ton of stock into, but I still think it's somewhat valid. And those are top 35 teams in the country. So Alabama played a huge collection of top 35 to 40 teams in the country. I think like 10 of their games were against like top 40 teams. So they played a lot of good teams, decent teams that are capable,
True.
I just, I think it's recency bias. And I really do. I think the recency bias of, what Bama did to Georgia, beating them by 17 points, I believe it was. It's what really, drove it home for the committee. But I didn't agree with it. Is it a hill that I want to die on? Of course not. Alabama's a very, like Desmond said, there are logical and arguments that can be made for both teams. But I just thought that the collection of the last 4 to 5 weeks for one team is a lot more of consistent football than the other, right? I mean, for God's sakes, Alabama stumbled into the conference championship game. I mean, like they probably should have lost at Auburn. Like they barely made it out of Auburn. Auburn had their third string quarterback, I believe, on one leg. And then look, I know that happens from time to time. We've seen Ohio State stumble into the last game of the year versus Michigan and almost lose to Maryland. I understand that happens from time to time. But and I just thought that Michigan was the more consistent team, right? I understood, Georgia was a consensus number one and how impressive that win was, but that's one impressive win compared to, I think, 3 or 4 weeks of really inconsistent football for Alabama. So I just, that's why I thought Michigan deserved the nod. And I also believe, and I don't think this should matter, that they took into account, doing a rematch of Georgia Alabama that they just played. I don't think that should matter, man. I didn't agree with it. And it'll all play itself out. But I just thought that Michigan was a more consistent team, consistent performances. This is not about, to me, Bama. Yes, Bama had the most impressive win of the year. Fine, but they haven't been playing, to me, number one seed consistent football. That's just how I looked at it.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think that a potential rematch in round one should come into play, but it does. And I think too, and Dre, you and I have talked about it with the committee, I think they always want some type of talking point every single time that they release the college football rankings. It's always something that people talk about, where the committee got this wrong. And the conversation last week, it was Notre Dame talking about their head coach, and he's not going to be there, so that comes into play. And I don't remember that ever being in the discussion. And I will also say that it seems like this is uncharted territory. Like, I can't remember, since we've had the college football playoff, I can't remember a coach leaving at it essentially with a shot to get in. So it is uncharted territory, but I don't ever remember that being part of a discussion of any of the presidents or heads of the college football playoff committee. Now, players, I feel like I recall hearing, like, potential players being out does factor into, whether like a team losing without, say, their best player, that, coming into play. But I never remember anything about a head coach being gone, like that being a factor into a team getting in or not. But I just think I think there's always something that they want to be a hot topic and to talk about, and trending on Twitter, all those good things. So I think there's a bit of that going into it. But I do agree with you that a rematch shouldn't factor into the rankings. It should just be the top four in the correct order.
Well, I just thought it would have made, and also just numerically, I just thought, like, I don't think it would have been, like, I don't think it's been much of a controversy thus far. I don't think many people are making a huge tizzy about how it played out. But even if it played out the way I said it, Michigan being number one, I mean, you're talking about Alabama's win. You're not just bumping them up from, because they were 3, if I'm not mistaken. You're not just bumping them up from 3 to, to 2. I mean, I'm sorry. You're not just, if you put, I just thought for Michigan winning and Georgia, who was number one, losing, it made logical sense. Okay, you bump up Michigan number one,
bump
up Alabama, you bump up Bama to 2, you drop Georgia a couple spots to 3, right? You lose, drop a couple spots, and then Cincy stay what they are, or the matchups could have stayed exactly how they are now,
and that's what I was going to say.
And Michigan still would have been number one. Georgia not being the only team to not win a conference gets the wild card bid, I guess you could say, the fourth slot, right? and you put Cincy Cincy and Alabama 2-3. Like either way, I just still think Michigan should have been number one. I just think they had the
So
best overall case.
It's not even necessarily a matchup thing for you. It's that you feel Michigan just truly deserves the number one spot. Got it.
Absolutely,
okay. That makes
absolutely.
sense.
I just think that when you look at all four teams, they've had the more impressive 4 to 5 weeks, and I think that's undisputed. I just believe that. Think about what Michigan has had to go through the last few weeks. You know what I'm saying? It's just it makes more sense, And if it wasn't, because you guys know me, people question my Michigan fan base all. They've been how many times has my fan Michigan's been questioned? Trust me, if I didn't feel like that was the case, I wouldn't say so. But I was strong in that conviction. I felt that Michigan should have been the number one team. And let's be honest here. The reason why everyone wants to be the number one seed is because they want to take on Cincy in the first round. Because we all view all three of us view Cincy as a easy win. Maybe they're not. We'll find out. Like you still got to go play the games.
Not necessarily an easy win, just the best matchup. Right? Because if Michigan's playing their A+ game, I don't think anybody wants to play them. If Alabama's playing their A+ game, I don't think anyone wants to play them. And same with Georgia. But I think Cincinnati's A+ game, I don't necessarily think you have to have an A+ game in order to beat Cincinnati when they're playing an A+ game. But those other three teams, I think you do. So I think it's just the best matchup. I think Cincinnati will actually be a tough team, a tough game for Alabama. Sure. But I think it's just it's the matchup, like you said.
They play Auburn tough. If my memory serves me correct, Mark and Des. I mean, they played Auburn pretty tough, I believe, in last year. What bowl game they play Auburn? It was Auburn, wasn't it?
Georgia, yeah.
That was Georgia they played last year. Right. I mean, they played them pretty tough, if I'm not mistaken, at least for a while.
Oh, they played them really tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should have won. If the game would not have been mismanaged in regards to the clock at the end of the game, they would have won the game. They could have run out the clock with a 21-19 lead, and then they handed it over to Georgia, who kicked the game-winning field goal to make it 22-21, and then they had a crazy last play of the game with like 3 seconds left where they got a safety to make it 24-21. But basically, Georgia kicked a 50-yard field goal to beat them 22-21. And I don't remember the exact sequence, but I do remember that it was pretty well laid out that Georgia got the ball back because Cincinnati could have managed the time better. So yeah, that is a pretty good indicator of how well they can hang on one side. But to put it in perspective as well, Georgia was missing like a dozen players from that game. And I know Cincinnati was missing a safety for sure, who was an NFL draft pick who opted out. But Georgia just, they had
wave the white flag.
A slew of guys just opt out of that game that got drafted.
Well, I guess like my point of bringing that up was to say, like, if you take into Cincinnati had a really good year last year. You take that how they played in the bowl game versus a very well respected SEC team, right? And then you do the season they had this year. I guess my point is that I don't think Cincy's going to go into these games lacking confidence. I don't think they're going to go into these games intimidated, right? And I think that's a very dangerous thing. Like if you're going to have any shot when you're probably don't have as much talent, that's the other teams you're playing against, you better come in here with high confidence in yourself. And same thing for, Alabama, who's going to play them. I mean, Alabama should roll them, but if they come out, and that's the thing too, like if I'm an Alabama fan, if I'm you, that's what you just don't know, right? You guys have been so inconsistent this year. That's what's been the most, I think, shocking thing about Alabama is that this time of the year, no matter how inconsistent they may have started early in the year, Saban pretty much has those guys pretty much squared away. You guys are sharp. You don't beat yourselves. Routes are crisp. Defensive assignments are crisp. You're playing your best ball. And yes, of course, last Saturday will be indicative of that happening, but it's one game. And it's a game in which you guys are underdogs. I think you really and also Saban, let's be honest, he owns Kirby Smart. He really does. So it's like, I mean, who's to say if you guys aren't quite as crisp. And I know Saban's going to have 4 weeks. I understand the advantages. I'm just saying, like, we just you just don't know what kind of Bama you're going to get this year. It's been like that. So if you don't come out ready to play, you might find yourself in a dogfight.
Could be another struggle win. Who knows? But I mean, so the Auburn to Georgia, at least O-line wise, they did make some changes. They had a right tackle that they had to bench and put him back in. So they did do some shuffling on the O-line, because that O-line from the SEC championship to the week before, with Auburn, was just night and day. It was pretty unreal. To go from giving up, I think it was either 5 or 7 sacks to Auburn, to playing Georgia, who's the number 1 defense in the country, and you have Bryce Young literally standing in the pocket, looking, reading the defense, pointing to John Mechie to go to the corner and then throwing a touchdown. Like that's crazy. It's just a wild switch.
It helps when the probably the number 1 D tackle in the country is literally standing up. Like, he's so tired that he has 0 leg drive, and he essentially, off the snap of the ball, is just like arms extended, leaning, putting his weight on an offensive lineman. Like,
yes, and kind of to transition that to Michigan, you have to run some tempo, especially when you have 99 on the field.
Whew.
Because he can, if he's not gassed, he can wreck a game plan very quickly. Yeah. But if you can get him gassed, I mean, there were plenty of times that I saw Bama would catch them on the field and just would run tempo, to the point where, I mean, even the next drive, he wouldn't come in because he was
big fella was sucking wind.
He is I saw a picture of him. It was a picture of him, a picture of another Georgia player, and then a picture of like a parent or something. Like, after the game, they had their helmets off but still shoulder pads on, and it was funny because, like, the caption on the picture was like, hey everybody, the guy in the middle is like a really big, like, football, or it started with the parents, like, hey everybody, the guy on the far right, that's a normal human being. They're like, the guy in the middle, that's like a Division I football player. They're like, the guy on the left, that's Jordan Davis. Like, and it just, the size difference was, I'm like, this guy is a monster.
He's a mammoth human being, but it was just, you don't see that often. I mean, my he was just like,
yeah, he just stood up and just kind of put his hands on the O lineman, and
I saw a 0 leg drive, dude. Like, he was literally just locked. It was just like, bro, please, someone just knock this ball down. Because if you knock the ball down, maybe we can get like a slight break. Because that's really the only chance you have to, like, stop an up-tempo offense. Like, you got to get an incompletion, right? But he's just like, please. So it's like, so no, Michigan definitely has to go on tempo, and it's going to be interesting because, Gattis likes to do these different packages, right? He likes to bring in Hassan Haskins, certain packages, Blake Corum, and now they've added Donovan Edwards too. And it's really what makes our offense has taken off. It's the versatility, right? As well as, at times bringing in JJ, right? So that's going to be the interesting thing. How does Gattis utilize up-tempo while still being creative, which is going to have to also be to score on this Georgia defense, right? That's going to be the interesting thing for me.
I think it'll be important to not to sub, and it sounds crazy, but to sub JJ the way we like him to sub JJ, which is give him a drive. Like, you go 2 drives with Cade, give JJ a full drive. Well, if you don't, you give the defense a chance to sub. So I'm just not.
Don't make me feel comfortable, Des. Not in a full drive.
Here's the thing. Georgia has about 15 guys on the D line that they could bring in, so they can consistently have fresh guys coming on the field, which is in Alabama runs tempo just as part of their offense. But they made it a point not to sub, to keep those guys, to try to wear those guys out, because you saw it, right? The result of it is you get a second or third down, and you've got one guy who's not even rushing. I mean, that you can't beat that, right? If 4 guys don't rush, you've got 5 linemen that you still have an extra guy to, if in case you bring a blitz or something like that. So I do understand, that JJ has packages and plays and things like that, but you also too have to take into consideration who you're playing, right? Like, when you get to the college football playoff, a lot of it is matchups, and you have to put your team in the best possible position to succeed. And I think, and that's just my take on it. Now, obviously, you don't have to do it every single time where JJ gets a full drive, and maybe you do some subbing, but overall, I think that it's something that you've got to at least be conscious of. Like that needs to be part of, in bowl preparation. Josh Gattis should be talking to the team about that.
Absolutely. Well, look, I mean, we got plenty of time to really kind of digest these matchups. Both teams will have plenty of time to game plan and get healthy, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. But look, the also cool thing about this time of the year is a coaching carousel. So if you don't mind, I mean, mind if we pivot and talk about a little bit of that, and maybe get your thoughts on some of the coaching changes. And how do you feel about that?
Well, first, I want to talk about my family because I'm so excited to be down here in Louisiana with my family. That was a disaster. Like that's losing the press conference there, even though it was
Right
a press
away,
conference.
I'm just like, I can't. For one, everyone thinks this is an odd relation union
Pairing, yes,
anyway,
it's not a
and
culture fit at all.
it's like, boy, if he meant to try to bridge the gap a little bit, he did not. He made it maybe even worse. Is that now you're forcing it?
That's
Oh,
not how you bridge the gap, by being someone that you're not, or talking a way that you don't usually talk. That's not how it works.
oh,
Um,
Brian Kelly. Oh my goodness. What are you
yeah,
doing? Oh, what are you
that I
doing?
I don't know.
How about the comment about um I wanted to coach the best players in the country or something like that. It's like, don't you have like a top 5 recruiting class in Notre Dame? I think number 3 in the country coming in. Like,
I think
dude,
he did. It.
yes. It's
I don't
just
know.
like,
I just think that you can talk about how excited you are for your current job without either saying things that are disingenuous or just lying about where you came from. It was just very odd, and to me it's like, why does it even matter what listen, I think the SEC is the best conference in the nation. Whatever, right? That's just your opinion. Great. And I wanted to accept the challenge of coming here to LSU. They have a great tradition. They're a couple years from winning a national championship. We're trying to get back to that. That's the goal there. Like, I mean, it's not that difficult, but it just you know
I mean, just odd union. I mean, look, he's had a very good career. He's
hmm
won everywhere he's been.
hmm
Elevated the programs everywhere he's been. So by all means, he has the cachet to be successful. It's just, you're talking about a guy, and I know, and when it happened, I thought about Saban. Saban's done it. Being a guy who's all his coaching ties are in the Midwest. All his stops as a head coach has been in the Midwest, right? Going down south, with not really any connections to the South, right? Understanding that culture, appealing to those type of kids and stuff like that. So I mean, I know Saban was able to do it, but what you remind me of, he's really the anomaly, right? And I don't know, man. I just think
To
it's a
me, the
culture
the tough
shock.
part is when you in right at the time Saban was at LSU, he was not regarded as the best coach in college football history, but
Yeah,
nonetheless, it's still the same person, right?
right.
So to me, when you look at the exception and then try to apply that as the rule, it's usually not going to work all that well. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
just
but look,
Brian Kelly is a
LSU had to
terrific
do
coach,
it.
but I just don't think he's going to be successful there. I really
They
don't.
probably was better off going for Napier, right? A guy who's from there, who's literally coached in that state.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? No, he's coming from a small school, but we know LSU likes the big names, right? So they went after a big name, couldn't get Lincoln Riley. I do believe Lincoln Riley was their first choice. Couldn't get Lincoln Riley, so they went and got Brian Kelly. And look, I just think, man, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think that's going to be literally a boom or bust situation. Like I can see that being a disaster in a couple seasons and him being out. Best believe, with LSU, it's a win now type of program. You don't have 3 to 4 years to ramp up.
This isn't
You
a
know what I'm
rebuild.
saying?
This isn't a
This is no
rebuild.
Rebuild. Like I can't do a Southern accent. You can do one better than me, but I sound like Brian Kelly. Like
Even if it were a rebuild situation, LSU's not going to treat it that way, and they're not going to
no,
give you that runway to
no,
have four seasons to try to get this together. Absolutely not. Go recruit Louisiana. Go recruit Baton Rouge, New Orleans. Get these Louisiana kids here on campus, and win next year. We should be in contention to
beat
win the West
Alabama
next year.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's the expectation.
Especially now with the transfer portal. Like you always had JUCO. JUCO is SEC territory, right? That's where JUCO players go. So you always had that in the back pocket to get like quick impact players right away. But now you have the transfer portal now. I mean, now it don't take that. You can, when you have the cachet, it's like, no, you get the players here, you win very quickly.
But think about this, right? Lincoln Riley leaves Oklahoma, goes to USC. You see multiple Oklahoma players jumping in the transfer portal, heading to USC, multiple commits, decommitting from Oklahoma, and just opening up their commitment or committing to USC. Have you seen any of that with Notre Dame to LSU?
No.
Have you seen any kid jump in the transfer portal from Notre Dame, potentially following Brian Kelly to LSU, or any potential Notre Dame commits decommitting from Notre Dame?
Here's also another thing too, and here's another thing too. That's why I think it was so important for Notre Dame to keep Marcus Freeman on staff and promote him, because one thing that Brian Kelly does have the reputation of is that he is not the most well-liked person to his staff nor players. And I'm not saying that you have to be, look, you're CEO. I mean, not most head coaches aren't like loved, right? I mean, like, you're not supposed to be, that's not your job to win the relationship battle. But Brian Kelly really doesn't have the greatest relationships with his personnel on any level. So it's like, I mean, I don't know what true impact does Brian Kelly have on recruiting in terms of, the connection he forms with the players. Like, did the players choose Notre Dame because of Brian Kelly, or did they choose it because of Marcus Freeman and some of the other assistant coaches? You know what I'm saying? Like that could be very telling, right? Obviously you could see, like with Lincoln Riley going to USC, players want to play for Lincoln Riley. You know what I'm saying? Especially offensive players. It just makes total sense. So that's another interesting thing to watch too. That's why you shouldn't burn bridges and be really careful with your reputation.
True. If you had to, what's Brian Kelly's calling card? Like, I don't know if he's a defensive coach, offensive. I think he's an offensive guy, but I don't really know.
Well, I've always just looked at him. This is maybe a cop out, just as a program builder. Like, I think it goes back to the CEO thing. I think he's one of those CEOs who he burns a lot of bridges, but he's good at understanding how to build a program. But he has flaws, right? And the flaws, I think, is the relationship part. So I just think he's just good at, probably finding it, like he did. He did a coaching staff overhaul a couple of years ago to, help change the Notre Dame program. And I think he's going to do the same thing here. I think he understands the type of coaches that he needs to look. He tried to bring a lot of his assistant coaches with him, right? And by my understanding, not a lot left, right? So that's going to be interesting. He's going to have to, really rebuild his whole infrastructure. It's one thing when you have an established program somewhere else, especially at a very, very well-respected university, and you leave and you get able to take your people with you. Because essentially, you had those, everyone has their roles. You know exactly who's going to do what, and you just take it and you take it to another area, right? But now he really has to try to figure things all over again. That's why I'm not sure, man, how he's going to do it in a limited amount of I think
And the thing is when you're in the South, like it's just culture. Like, you have to talk to people a certain way, especially people that you want to do favors for you. Like, you're within the program and trying to find out, where do I go for this? Where do I go for that? I just don't see that working out well. One Scoop John, you did say, I think you said the word program, but all of a sudden a Southern accent did come out of you. And One Scoop John says, did everyone hear the sudden Southern accent? It did come out. I don't know
For me,
what got in you. Yes, from you. You were just like,
I
yeah,
don't
it
know.
just, with
I
the
think Brian Kelly
program,
got to me.
like
I
he's
tried to
definitely
do
getting
it a
to
little
you.
bit. I know.
But you had mentioned something about wearing, kind of tough to deal with and wearing on people. And, before when he first was hired, honestly, I mean, if we're being honest, that was something that came with Jimmy, with Harbaugh. It was, when he was with the 49ers, like I don't think the front office did a great job with managing the relationship, but people talked about that. It was like, yeah, he tends to grind on people. And then also too, before the stop at Stanford, and they when you looked at his history, it was 4 or 5 years, then moving on, 4 or 5 years
Yeah,
and moving on, and and,
absolutely.
and that's fair. And I'm not saying that's exactly why, but maybe for Brian Kelly, maybe that changes a bit. When he's
But
at
but
LSU.
you
I don't
see,
I don't
I think
know,
it's for
but
different reasons though. Like I think Jimmy burns bridges because he's just an odd guy to deal with. I think there's a certain word that I think is associated with Brian Kelly, and it rhymes with Bass Dole. Like I think that's
righty.
the difference. I mean to say it likely. I think that's like I just think it's they burn bridges for different reasons. Like I think Jimmy's just very odd, right? And he is, and he's an odd guy to work for, odd guy to play for, and he's just not for everyone. I think Brian Kelly just really rubs people the wrong way in terms of how he talks to you and all that stuff. I mean, those are things you've heard about, right? He can be degrading to players and to his personnel, and look, Saban as well. But I think the key is like I guess we seen you see me compilation videos of of different Saban rants, and
I
and all
love him.
that stuff.
He uses them as how to send messages to his team. And it's so funny because on Friday before the SEC championship, we had talked on the phone, and you had asked me how I felt about the game, and I'm like, you know what? Like, usually, if number one, if the team was kind of dragging and Saban needed to send a message to him, usually he is good for a Wednesday rant. He will
Yeah,
go create just an attitude, just spark out of nowhere. Like, if somebody will ask just normal, how was practice today? "Oh, how was practice?" And he'll just, go off just on a tangent and be, upset. But he hasn't done that. And I told you that was one of the things that I was in hope mode. I'm like, that's one of the things I'm hoping for, is that, it sounds like the week of practice has been going well, because if it wasn't, Wednesday's usually, I mean, like clockwork, that if we're having a rough week of practice, you can count on that. And really, if I had to guess, I feel like I remember Texas A&M week, that Wednesday he went on a rant. But nonetheless, I mean, we'll see. I mean, if I've got to call it today, I don't think that this is going to work with Brian Kelly at LSU. I think that
well,
in 3 years he's probably going to be gone.
that's what I think too. I don't see it as well. Now, the other big one is Lincoln Riley going to USC. I mean, look, I already know with me and you are literally on two different sides of Lincoln Riley. You can't stand Lincoln Riley, but whatever. That's just your little
Mm,
thing.
I don't think that's
You
fair.
can't stand him, and you just
No,
can't
no, no.
stand him. I don't want to hear
I
nothing
just
else.
don't
You
like
don't like him. You think
the.
he's an overrated coach. You think that he's all offense, nothing else,
Whoa,
and
whoa,
that he
whoa, whoa,
doesn't win on
whoa.
the biggest
You are
level.
you're saying things that I did not say.
You may not have said it on here, but we talk
I've
often,
never said that
and
to you. None of those things I have said to you.
you never said that. Are
No,
you sure?
I'm 100% sure.
Okay.
What I said to you was Lincoln Riley continues to carry this reputation of an offensive genius, and what I have said to you is, in big games, you can't consistently underperform in where you're genius at and continue to keep the reputation. That's my thought process on it, right? So Lincoln Riley is an offensive genius. Well, why'd you score 21 against Baylor, I think 2 years ago with Jalen Hurts? Why is it consistently, because I follow a different podcast where he was a big fan of Oklahoma, where he's like, oh yeah, Oklahoma, their offense, they roll out of bed and get 56. They roll out of bed and get 55 points. But I'm like, but not in the big game. Not when you need them. You can't beat Baylor and with where's 56 points there. So that's my biggest issue with him is number one, somehow you keep the offensive genius title, but when you need your offense the most, you somehow can't come through. Like that's my big problem. And then you get into the playoff games and you just get throttled outside of the year with Baker, and even that, like, okay, you scored, you were up 28-13, 28-14 at halftime, and you lose that game, and you're an offensive genius. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's my issue with Lincoln, but I do think he's a really good coach.
And I think I I think it's for one, dude, his deal to USC is just incredible. From the amount of money he's getting paid, 2 houses, complete access to the jet, to the private jet. I mean, you're in LA, you're in Cali, you're and also the geographic advantage of being access to some of the best players besides the South. Ohio, because that's the one state in the Midwest that is predominantly the best football players. Sadly, it's Ohio, and then you have the West Coast. It's California. I mean, you have access to all those players, and not only California, but your Texas, Oklahoma. Right now, you really. It's just, I think it's a match made in heaven. He's in the Pac-12. It's not like you have to really worry about playing great defense in the Pac-12 as well. I think it's going. I mean, you really only have to deal with Oregon too in terms of your main opponent. Washington is down.
And Oregon's not that good either. I mean, for being frank,
I'm talking. Yeah, and they just lost their head coach.
Right.
Cristobal going to what was it? Is it
Miami?
Miami. Thank
you.
The U, right? So it's a great situation. I mean, I can see USC winning 10, 11 games this year just because of, what you worry about? Chip Kelly at UCLA. I mean, come on.
He's got to get that O-line together. I don't know who their quarterback is going to be. Is Keaton Slovis still there? But nonetheless, I mean, the Pac-12 is not very good. So yeah, you just need to be above average. Even like Oregon with this year, I'm like, they weren't world beaters. They got Ohio State, earlier this season, but I don't think Ohio State was at that level, yet where they were just kind of humming along when Michigan caught them. But it just I don't know. It just the Pac-12 is just not that good of a conference, and when it comes down to it,
run that thing. And Antoine, thanks, man. I'm in lockstep with what you're saying. I think it's a match made in heaven. Now, when they get to the playoffs, we'll see. But he's going to have his pick of the litter. I mean, that's what, to me, outside the South, that's where the best skill players come from, is California.
If
Quarterback,
you're smart,
receivers.
If you're smart, you don't have to leave the state, and you can be dominant. You can basically recruit California and Hawaii.
Draw a line.
And be just fine.
Lincoln can draw a line pretty much through the whole state of California. It's like, if we get 80% of the kids from this area, we're going to be in the playoffs every year.
And you don't even need to have a really big line either. I mean, you can get, what is it? Bosco, I think, or John Bostic, something like that. They listen, there's plenty of schools there, just powerhouse schools where DJ Uiagalelei came from, Bryce Young. There's just an unreal amount of talent there in California. Like, you just recruit LA. Just recruit LA. Don't even leave the city. Just go to different schools in the city, and you'll be just fine. You will be just fine.
And you're going to have. I mean, think about, guys. Go and look at the top quarterbacks in the country. In terms of recruiting, you see that state California a lot, and that's really the main thing. If you can get your 5-star kids there, especially at the quarterback position, you're pretty much halfway there. Because it's just, man, I think you're going to hear USC is back. You're going to hear that a lot. And I thought he's well worth it for the situation you're in. Great investment by there. I put it this way. I pick, if there's any program, if you include, Miami getting Cristobal, Florida getting Napier, Notre Dame keeping Marcus Freeman, promoting him, uh, LSU with Kelly, and Lincoln Riley to USC. I think USC has did the best job. One, I guess, is the biggest winner to me, and maybe second you can put Napier to Florida.
I think part of that and not saying Lincoln's not a good coach, because he's a really, really good coach, but I think part of it is just that what the heck was Clay Helton did such a poor job. Like, he was so awful that it's just like, man, if we can just get anybody in here like that, that would be good. But then they also, they end up getting Lincoln, and no, it was an incredible job that they. I would agree. But also too, I don't know if you've heard it too, but there's some weird things going on with his coaches from Oklahoma that may or may not be coming over to USC. Like, I heard something that there's a coach who's recruiting a kid, and this coach is still on the Oklahoma, not roster, but directory, still on the Oklahoma directory, but he's recruiting a kid like on Oklahoma's dime for USC. Now, I don't know if that's true. That's just something I kind of heard, and I was on it was a channel on YouTube, but it's a little fuzzy. I'll just say that it's a little fuzzy. He's got to get that cleaned up.
Yeah, and look, Brent Venables going to, Oklahoma will be interesting. I mean, he's been an excellent defensive coordinator for Clemson for years, but that's a totally different, I mean, you're going from, like we said, the South to, the what is Oklahoma?
Mid-country?
South,
I don't know.
Mid-country, almost pretty much central
U.S.
South central of the country. I like him. He's definitely been a well targeted, coach for the last couple of years now, and I think he's finally found an opportunity that him and his family think is absolutely appeasing. But what's going to be interesting is that he is a defensive guy, so he's going to have to establish his identity in Oklahoma, right? And I think that's going to take some time. I think he's going to have to, it'll be different if he could find some kind of high-powered offensive coordinator that he can just say, hey, you run a play like a Joe Brady type guy, someone of that nature, like that. If he's going to have a quick turnaround, that's what I'm trying to say. Other than that, I think he's going to have to establish his identity there. But we'll see.
The tough part is if that's your calling card is defense, that's not Oklahoma's current calling card.
No, it's
so
not.
You're talking about overhauling a full
that's what I mean.
program,
yeah,
or just bringing guys in. It's a difficult task, man. That is a very difficult task.
Let me ask you this question. And, I think a year ago, Michigan fans probably would have rolled their eyes and not cared. This is how fast things change in a year. Maybe even a couple of months, because earlier this season, and I think most Michigan fans felt this way. If you're Josh Gattis, you just won a Broyles Award for best is it offensive assistant or is it assistant coach of the year?
Best assistant coach of the year. Yep.
And Oklahoma calls you to be their OC. Do you think that is a better opportunity than Michigan is right now?
Nope, not even.
I thought so. I agree. Because the ironic thing, I think a year ago, like I think some Michigan fans would be like, take him, right? We don't want Gattis anymore. And now they're like, no, Gattis is just starting to figure it out. That's how I feel too. We keep him. And he's been he's going to get a raise, as he should. What, Justin, you said hell no. So does that mean you want him to leave?
No, I think he was saying, would Gattis go?
Yeah. I mean,
would that be a better opportunity? I think it's tough because you look at like Michigan is actually in the CFP, and Oklahoma just they struggled with Kansas. They got all kinds of crap going on, and it just no. My thought was for Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma for his era and tenure, that my thought was, and I told you from the beginning of this year, if Oklahoma doesn't win it this year, they're not going to win it with Lincoln Riley, because you had everything in your favor. Returning quarterback, Big 12. I don't want to say it was down, but you were by far the best team in the Big 12. Should have been. But
Oklahoma State was Oklahoma State is definitely respectable. I mean, you saw what they, you saw
I
that
didn't say
Baylor
they were trash. I just said Oklahoma was
and
the
Baylor
best
as
team.
well. Yeah.
So that's that's and who knows, maybe that weighed into his decision, maybe it didn't. He's just like, no, I want to go to California. LA is pretty nice. So
He has less competition in the Pac-12 than the Big 12.
correct.
I
That is
mean, like
100% correct.
I mean, that man is winning. I'll just leave that there. He's winning, and everybody else, I think, is going to be a question mark. Because Venables is first time. I mean, that's a big time job. It's going to take some time. I think Marcus Freeman, even though he's like both guys, Venables and Marcus Freeman were both hot names that were going to get head coaching opportunities, right? Last couple of years, but it was a matter of the right situation. But they're going to go through a learning curve because they don't have like a ton of head coaching experience, if I'm not mistaken, especially Marcus Freeman. He's really young.
I just looked at Notre Dame's 2022 football schedule. They kick things off on September 3rd against Ohio State. That's a good first game for you. Well, Freeman's coaching the bowl game, but boy, that's a heck of a home opener. They got Marshall, Cal, North Carolina, Clemson, and USC. So that'll be interesting. That's
the transfer portal. See, and that's why you gotta love the transfer portal, but also fear it, right? Because hey, Michigan, we're going to be impacted by a transfer portal. I think in a positive way, and negative way. I think we're going to get some players right from this successful season, but we also may lose. We're going to talk about this all season too. A quarterback. I know guys don't want to hear it, but I don't see JJ and Cade being on the sideline this fall. I don't see it. Next fall, excuse me. Thank you. Next fall. And that's going to be huge, right? Because let's say we're all, as of now, have the assumption, even with the success Michigan has had, that JJ is JJ's job next year, right? So that's the case. Cade, there's no way Cade stays. Why would he? And he probably shouldn't. In terms of what he has proven and what's best for his career. Because let's be honest, I mean, most of these kids' goal is to get to the NFL, right? If it's not the start, it's at least become a backup and make you some money, right? I think the best job in the NFL is being a backup. So,
so Michigan has a Michigan September schedule. You don't leave the state.
Mm-hmm.
You play every game at home, and here's your first 4 games: Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, and Maryland. So JJ is going to have plenty of time to get acclimated as being the starter, and then he has the scary task of going to Iowa home. My gosh, I wonder if he's going to be able to sleep that night before. But
well, look, man, go ahead and downplay playing at Iowa.
Gosh, I hope it's not a night game.
No, but look, here's the thing, and one Scoop John said, you can keep both. I know, I just don't think you can. It's just like you guys got to consider the landscape of today's college football. I mean, just it's rare, and if you think about it this way, right? I think we're all assuming JJ is the guy, right? If he's not starting, he probably is going to go because right. and it won't be personal because you got to understand for these guys now it's also business. Right, you can love you could be attracted to a university all you want to, and it maybe really want to stay, but it's a business, and you're trying to get your name out there, you're trying to get your tape out there because you're trying to get to the next level, and now with the transfer portal, you no longer have to sit out anymore, guys. It's like, think about it. Say if you're Cade, right? Let's say worst case scenario, Michigan loses to Georgia. He's had a good season. He's won a conference championship. He's played in numerous big games, right? Started all year. You know how many teams will line up and say, son, you can start for me right now?
Mm-hmm.
And not max school. We're talking about good programs, well-established programs that need a quarterback.
I know Matt Campbell would love to have him at Iowa State.
Absolutely.
They're losing Brock Purdy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there'll be plenty of teams lining up to. If Cade hits a transfer portal, his phone is going to be blowing up.
Absolutely,
blowing up.
He'll have it. He'll have his pick, as he should. He deserves that. He just doesn't have the only reason why we're even discussing this because he clearly doesn't have the what am I looking for? The ceiling.
I don't think it's anything that he's
JJ.
missing. It's just the type of play. It's just JJ's ceiling,
Yeah,
right? It's not
JJ's
as
ceiling.
if Cade is like is less than, right?
He's
It's
done
just in a
nothing
vacuum.
wrong.
Just
He's done nothing
him
wrong.
as a quarterback.
Right.
He's a really good quarterback. It's
Absolutely.
just the scope of college football today is if you've got a special guy, especially a quarterback, and he's a young guy, you're only going to get so much time before he's going to let you keep him on the bench until he leaves school.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like, it's not as if Cade's doing anything wrong. He's led the team to the freaking Big Ten title game, won that, beat Ohio State, 12-1 record, and going to their number 2 team in the nation. Like, and yes, JJ's had a part in that, but Cade has been your, 90 to 95% of the meaningful snaps. He's taken them. So, yeah, it's not that he's done anything wrong. It's just sometimes you have to make that change. Like, I look at, Alabama with Jalen Hurts and Tua. Like, you're only going to get so much time. You're only going to get so much time. And JJ's from everything we know, his ceiling is really high. So that's really what it is. It's not like Cade is doing anything bad or he's
right.
It's just no. Like I would say Cade's excelled in this offense. Like, he's done a terrific job.
Absolutely.
So and I would argue too, he may not be a first round pick today, but Cade's an NFL quarterback. I feel that way. I may be on my own.
Want your backup. You want he's to me a prototypical backup NFL quarterback. Your prototypical backup NFL dude. David Blau is on an NFL roster. Okay, sadly the Detroit Lions. Okay, you guys remember David Blau played at Purdue? I do. Nothing. Cade's way better than him. Okay, Cade McNamara can definitely play on the next level, right? And he's a perfect type of guy you want because, especially as a backup, because he's smart. He knows his limitations, and he's going to be very smart with the ball. And for the most part, he's actually pretty accurate. He just has a certain limitation in terms of being dynamic. That's the only thing he's missing. Something extremely dynamic about his game. But other than that, he actually
understands how important completing passes is.
Yes.
Even a check
and
down.
Protecting the football.
That
he actually reminds me a lot of Chad Henne. He has a lot of Chad Henne in him. Because Chad Henne to this day is still,
I think he's still on a roster.
It's still on NFL rosters. You know what I'm saying? Heck, he won a play. Was it didn't Pat Mahomes get hurt? Was it last year?
Yeah.
And Chad Henne had to step in. He has a lot of that in him. He's just a smart game manager quarterback. And so my point is that if you're one of these head coaches, that have these big time jobs, you need a quarterback. I mean, is it crazy to say that Lincoln needs a quarterback USC? No, you at least consider it.
He ain't going to USC, bro.
Probably not. Okay.
Lincoln's about to get a 5-star kid.
Probably, you're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right.
Not USC.
Florida, Miami. Miami needs a quarterback. Garrett King isn't. Garrett King isn't.
No, they got Travis Van Dyke or something like that. Yeah, they've got a kid that Mario Cristobal said is the best quarterback in the nation. So
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I'm just throwing. A point is that he would have his pick of the litter of he won't be taking a step down like that. He would just not in the Big Ten. God Almighty, please! I don't want to see. Can you imagine Graham Mertz hits a transfer portal or something like that, or Nebraska? Now they need a quarterback. Can you imagine Cade goes to Nebraska? Oh God,
no. That'd be interesting, but no.
Where does Adrian Martinez go, guys?
I don't think it matters. Like people talk about stuff like that. Like, for a guy who does not understand how to protect the football, I have no need for you at quarterback. I have no need for you. If I'm Adrian Martinez, this is just me, and this is my 35-year-old brain, not whatever he is, 20 years old. I'm going to the MAC or a G5, and I'm going to tear it up. That would be what I would recommend to him. Either I think UCF has a quarterback, a returning quarterback, but a program like that, UCF, you're playing some high level football. You'll throw the ball a lot and kick butt, or I don't know, North Dakota State, South Dakota State. I don't know how many of those teams throw the ball, but
he probably needs. I mean, let's be honest. If the only reason he's doing this, he probably has aspirations for NFL. Kid, your aspirations to being a quarterback in NFL, those days are done. Okay, you're not going to be a quarterback. However, maybe he can consider a position change to receiver because he's athletic. Other than that, his quarterbacking days.
Athletic. If I were him, I would tell him, go to the University of Toledo. You're going to throw the ball a ton, and they need to see film of you not throwing it to the other team. That's what they need to see.
And not fumbling, and not doing your typical fumbles. D. Brown says Martinez goes to Oregon or Army. Well, him in a triple option
Army's
is pretty
embarrassing, but
it's
Oregon,
embarrassing.
I don't know. Oregon could be one, but I think they've got the Tyler Thompson kid coming in. Trying to think. Yeah, maybe Big 12 would be in it, or ACC. Can you go to Florida State? I don't know. I'm really not.
What happened? The guy who got hurt and he played.
Kenzie Milton.
Yeah.
He was on the bench. I don't know what's going on there, but I just, to me, that Adrian Martinez doesn't move the needle for me at all. I mean, if I'm a Power 5 coach with
never could put. He's talented. He just never could put it all together, and it's unfortunate. And it's just not going to change. Like he's had so much. It's not like his lack of experience. He's had like over 30 starts. He's played a lot. So it's not like he just has to figure it out. No, he is who he is.
And that's why I look at the amount of kids that get into the transfer portal. It's just silly. Like, it is silly. They said like something like 70% of these kids don't land anywhere. So you go tell your coach, I'm going in the transfer portal. Cool. Every 10 kids that do that, 7 of them don't go anywhere. And you've basically given up your scholarship. So unless you have a conversation with your coach that, no, I want to stay. Outside of that, for those kids that pack up and leave school, you're playing nowhere. Like, that is just crazy that kids do that. But seeing Twitter and just the madness that's just consistently again and again and again, transfer portal. I don't get it. Antoine's got a good question though. I saw this earlier. He said, "What do you think about Edwards in the Wildcat with Haskins and Blake in the backfield?" I think that would be that'd be nice. That'd be a heck of a wrinkle, man.
From that throw that he did like that, I don't think that was a fluke. I mean, that kid has a cannon, man.
No. Well, you don't fluke throw the ball 70 yards or however, you know what I mean? Like,
cannon, man. And like, best believe, like, that will be added. That will be used again. That package will be used again versus Georgia, because it's just that is so scary, because it's like, whoa, we can't just like play up on this. Like, we can get burnt, not just from like because most of the time that play works, right? That play works. It might get you. You may catch someone slip and get you a 25, 35, 30-yard play, right? You don't really see those plays working for 70-yard bombs, and which literally the throw was majority of the play. You know what I'm saying? That
was probably the best throw of the night for anybody.
Oh, absolutely, by a wide margin. By a wide margin. Antoine, I think that's a great suggestion. I mean, I think that is that can be extremely scary.
And he may have mentioned it earlier too, but having, you could even do something like have him in the pistol, have Hassan Haskins behind him, and Blake Corum coming on a jet sweep. You know what I mean? Like, just scary.
But no, you don't have to do that. How you can have them all on there? Sanders still has been extremely dangerous with that. With those, no, not Sanders still. I'm sorry, AJ Henning has been extremely dangerous on those reverse plays, man.
Yeah,
like
it could be scary, man. And I hope that
next year, man. I'm already looking forward to next year. I feel like Gattis is finally.
You got a chance to win a national championship. Let me talk about so excited
this year and next year, because I feel like Gattis in his office is really finally starting to like roll and click. Yeah. So can you imagine like if they can continue to expand this thing? Because look, we're losing Haskins. That's a big loss, but we got Corum. Still got Edwards. Still gonna have Henning. This is exciting, dude. But no, Antoine, back to your point. That's a great suggestion. I don't know if he 4
weeks, so let's put it in.
I don't think he played quarterback. He might have thrown a couple of times for West Bloomfield, but I don't think I know he was a running back for sure. That was his main position at West Bloomfield. Yeah. But no, I mean, look, obviously,
Antoine said, "Tweet
We can
that
try.
suggestion to him."
We can try. But I feel like, like they'll be silly not to have that package in, or definitely use the package they used versus Iowa, because that is absolutely terrifying. Best believe Georgia has that circled, because you just can't fake that. That wasn't like fluky, pass wobbling. Well, I can't believe he actually finished the play. That was like crisp. What I'm saying? Like Desmond said, like that was like the best throw of the night. And he did it under duress. Like he did it by taking a hit.
He took a shot. Yeah.
You
could argue that could have been targeting too.
Yes. I mean, most quarterbacks.
That shot was pretty high up, but
yeah.
It'll be interesting, man. But I'm excited to see what Michigan does. I think, and we'll get more into it, obviously, but I think Michigan's got more than a shot. Like I think the spread's what, one score, 7 points, 7, 8 points, something like that.
We'll settle that on the field, baby. We'll settle that on the field.
Exactly.
And I'm not too worried about that. It's I think that's a lot of SEC bias too. A lot of and so, but I don't fear Georgia. I respect them. But I definitely give us a good shot versus them. You don't and Michigan has earned that respect to me that this year, where they have played the consistent football. They have the talent, the NFL talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I think they can do enough offensively to give themselves a chance. So we wrote a football out there. And also Georgia, and we'll talk about this more, Desmond. Georgia doesn't have a quarterback that can rip us apart. Rip us apart. You know what I'm saying?
His name's not Stetson Bennett. I know that for sure.
So
potentially we'll JT, but I don't know. And then before we wrap, Blesniak 21 left us a super chat. Thank you so much. They put, I think everybody has doubted us all year, and we're going to show people what we are about. Go blue. That's big. It's big time stuff. I mean, how you feel right now? Like you're getting ready. Like we got the lull going on. You're getting ready for the college football playoff.
I get to enjoy the holidays, man. It's a great feeling, dude. Get to enjoy the holidays, and
you're gonna have a really good Christmas.
Yeah, really good Christmas. I mean, like it's funny, man. Normally this time of the year I kind of check out, because I can, for one, because my team's not really playing for anything, and of course I'll watch the bowl game, but this will be the first time that right after Christmas, it's like we're really ramping up for like, wait, we got the playoffs? Like, oh my God. And it's like
playoffs.
And New Year, and the game's on New Year's Eve, if I'm not mistaken. Like,
yes.
And we're gonna have to be on after that. Should be interesting.
Pause real quick. If you guys would drop us a chat if you would have a problem with us starting after midnight, because my thought is game's kicking off at 7:30. There's going to be, some pre-game whatever, but it's New Year's Eve. Like the ball's going to drop. That was one thing that came to my mind today, was just what would our viewers think about that? Because that would be interesting. But it'd be cool if we could, kick off at like 12:15 or something like that. But yeah, it's a long night. But also too, it's New Year's Eve, so we'll see. But anyway, go ahead.
I think we're all gonna be having libations and enjoying a good time,
Yes,
so
we will.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I look forward to it, guys.
So yeah, I mean, Christmas will be here, and then after that, and it's gonna be, you're gonna be less than a week from the big game, and talking about playing in the college football playoff. Like it's gonna be incredible, man. It's gonna be really, really cool. And like I said, and it's not as if you snuck in and you're just hoping to hold on to a game. Like, no, you've got a legitimate shot to beat Georgia. Like, I don't think that's saying anything crazy. Like, I think Michigan legitimately has that. So
I would worry real quick. I would worry actually a lot more about Georgia's attitude if the game was played this weekend, because I do believe they're a little ticked off from last week. But I think with such a long layover that those extreme emotions kind of wear off. So like, well, we're in, whatever. It happened. We still have a chance to win a national title. But I think playing them like this weekend, it could have been like, they could be like itching to get back out there. So I actually think it kind of helps Michigan a little bit, that Georgia probably will chill out a little bit, you know?
Yeah. And Michigan's just going to be just riding high and confident and ready to roll, focused like they've done all year. So
Real
excited,
quick,
man.
30
Excited.
seconds.
Sure.
Did you
Go
have
ahead.
any problem with, we didn't go, I totally forget we didn't go into it, any problem with the Heisman finalists? I didn't understand the Pickett one. I thought Aiden, debatable between him and Anderson if you're going to have a Kenny, is it Kenny? Okay, what's his first name?
Will Anderson.
What debatable between him and Will Anderson if you're going to have a defensive player representative to go. But I thought K9 was a snub.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pickett should have been out, and I don't think Aiden shouldn't have been in, but I think based on just the numbers of Aiden, like to Will Anderson's numbers, like Will Anderson, like I get it. Aiden's had a phenomenal. I think for Aiden, it's more impact. It's not
Absolutely,
just
leadership and impact.
it's not
I'm
just the
with you. That's
stats,
why I think
it's
he should be there.
impact, and I think
Yeah.
that's what got him there. But I also think Will Anderson should have gone as well because I think he's got more sacks, he's got more tackles for loss. I think Aiden's got him on QB pressures, but I didn't see those numbers laid out. But I'm fine with Aiden going. But yeah, I agree with you. I think for Kenneth Walker not to go, I thought that was a bit tough.
Snub, man.
And my thing is with Pickett. That's probably my biggest issue. I'm like, this is a quarterback that lost to Western Michigan. Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know.
I feel like it was one of those, we can either have a quarterback there. It'd be weird not to have a quarterback at a high. I don't know, man. Like I thought that was a reach by them. I thought K9's been the most consistent running back in the country. You know, MSU's offensive line is not very good at all. And I think he, I give credit where credit is due, man. You know, he had a fantastic game. And we as Michigan fans were marveling at what Hassan Haskins did against the OSU. Well, K9 did that to us and won, just like we beat OSU. K9 was the sole reason that MSU beat us. Like he really was. And I just I think you got to think about, you talk about Aiden with impact, right? I think if you take Aiden off Michigan, I don't think they have nearly the season they have. Right, besides his actual, because you got to think about the leadership too, right? Say if Aiden went to NFL last year, I don't think Michigan has the season they had, right? I think if you take K9 off of MSU, instead of going 10-2, that may be a 6-6 football team. Seriously. So I thought it was a snub, dude. Like he may be my rival, but I gotta tip my cap to him. He's a fantastic player. So whatever.
Yeah. Antoine Johnson gave us a super chat. Thank you so much. But he said, Dre, I don't have Twitter and don't know how to use it. Can you tweet that suggestion to Michigan? And I believe Josh Gattis and all those guys are on Twitter. So do that.
No problem.
And do it today.
We'll do.
And tag me in it too.
Tag you in it too. Or I can just have you do it since you're like the Twitter expert between us two.
Listen, Antoine put in the chat, asked you to do it, Dre. So
I think
do it.
I think Antoine just wants the damn suggestion there.
Listen, he contributed to the show. He put the super chat in. I'm not putting words in his mouth.
Fine.
He said Dre. So
it'll get done, Antoine. It'll get done either way.
Perfect. Anything else, brother?
No, man.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. And that is it for us.
Peace.
Peace.